never mind. I was going to turn, I know there's some noise in the background. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't too noisy. But hello, everyone, and welcome to Ask a Black Man with virtual first dates, partnering with HBCU Lounge Network. And we're so glad to be here this evening. We have a special guest with us and friend to the show, Flimbrick J. And so I'm so glad to have you, and so glad that you were able to join us this evening so that we can continue on this journey and merging healing the relationship between Black men and Black women, and dig deeper so that we can connect in the way that we should. Is my background too loud, y'all?
No.
Okay, all right, it's just loud for me.
I'm so excited and happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yes, for sure. Hold on, I'm trying to get the volume up. Okay, well, so tonight we're going to talk about vulnerability. And it is a deep topic and broad, I would say, too. You can probably talk about it forever. I mean, just all the different perspectives, that are out there in people's understanding of what vulnerability is. And so before we go into that, I would like to give a definition. There's the basic definition of vulnerability. And so the basic definition of vulnerability is the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked, harmed, either physically or emotionally. And I think that in most cases, as it comes to relationships, we are focused on the emotional part. But that is my opinion. And so we wanted to get your opinion, Flimbrick, and see your perspective on how do you view vulnerability? What does vulnerability mean to you?
Sure. In most cases, I feel like being vulnerable puts me in a state of maybe not necessarily insecurity, but it exposes the inner character that I don't want anyone else to see. And so, for example, I supervise a program called Project Bay, but there are certain aspects about the program in which I just couldn't understand and didn't get. And so asking more questions, making myself vulnerable to the fact that I didn't have all the knowledge, put me at the forefront of people saying, this is supposed to be a person in leadership. And now he's acting like he doesn't have it. And it's just like, it's not that I don't have it. I'm vulnerable to say that I don't know it so that I can. And so in most cases, and if we think about that in a relationship, most times we don't know what we don't know, but we pretend because we don't want to expose what we don't know. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, definitely. No, I totally agree with you on that. And even just being able to be in the position to admit that is being vulnerable. A lot of times we like to be right, and it's a defense mechanism to protect yourself in a lot of times. So thank you for that. And so with vulnerability, do you believe that as a Black man, it's hard or difficult a lot of times to be vulnerable?
Oh, for sure. I think that as Black men, and I'll talk about myself, growing up in a Black household, you were kind of conditioned so that you don't have to look weak, so that you're strong, you're able to provide. And so just growing up with that, you don't really have a lot of time to expose yourself, to be emotional, you can't cry, all those different types of things. And so I think that it's really hard for a Black man to kind of grow up with that because it's a falsity, right? So I think that anybody is human. Jesus cried. He cried when a good friend of his died. So therefore, why can't I cry? And so I think that when we think about situations like that, then what happened to the point to where we started telling other Black men, don't show this side of you. Do not be emotional. Stay strong all the time. And I think that that's the very reason why we have so much mental health right now, because of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And mental health, it's one of those that I feel like has reared its head a lot more recently, well, probably in the last, 5 years or so, I would say. And I think that the idea of getting therapy has been something that there's been a stigma, connected with it, and especially in communities of color, in Black, community. They're like, we don't do that. Black people don't do that. And there's other ways that we cope, but therapy, it's good, it's necessary. And I think that there's different forms of therapy, or
Yeah.
different things that, are outlets that people use for therapy. But it's important. It's very, critical. I actually have seen Black men in a beautiful light. The men that I've known that have, gotten into therapy, they've been freed from a lot of stuff, healed from a lot of things, and which makes them comfortable in who they are to be themselves, and just have a much better, a better quality of life. And so I've, gotten appreciation for therapy. And I believe, as women, as a woman, it's important for us to do it as well, so that we can heal ourselves going into these relationships, so.
Something that was very important in the very beginning when you were talking about therapy and how we as a Black community don't necessarily see that.
You muted yourself.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all?
I think you were muted. Is it showing?
Yeah, it's showing.
There we go. I think it must have been the system that it muted. I couldn't hear you at all, or me.
Okay. So
yeah.
so what I'm saying is that you brought up a very good point about we as a Black community and how we don't seek help the way that we really, how we view help, number one. Sometimes
Right.
we don't really view therapy as talking and sitting down and talking to someone. I grew up in a household that says you don't talk about your family business. You don't talk about your business outside of this house. It's unfortunate. But 1 out of 5 Black Americans deal with some type of mental illness. 20%, 20 to 30% actually seek help. And we are actually 20% of that, 20% we actually are more susceptible to being like severe cases of mental health. And it's truly unfortunate, but I mean, as a Black community, we don't do right by going to talk to someone and saying anything. What we view as help is go to church. Go to church as a and so please don't tell me I'm not knocking church, because I love church. I definitely grew up in church, so, but once again, it sometimes I would go to church and come back home broken. So therefore, something about that connection is just not working. Something's not adding up. And so now that I'm older, I kind of feel like there are more pieces to the puzzle that were left out of me getting the healing that I needed just by going to church. And now I'm trying to develop that now that I'm a little bit older. But as far as like seeking help, I was very much so stigmatized by that too, by saying, there's no reason for me to talk to a white person about my problems. They're not going to understand me. And that kind of kept me from seeking an African-American person to talk to. It kept me from seeking out anyone else, just because I talked to someone. And I mean, I grew up with a lot of trauma. And so having that trauma kind of moved me on into this part of my life is disturbing, because I didn't have anyone to talk to about that. And I wish that I would have seeked out help a long time ago. But unfortunately, as a community, I think we need to do better about it.
No, I totally agree with you on that. It's so funny because I was thinking that the other day, and even with the way that you have been conditioned, the way that I've been conditioned, and so many of us, you think like, oh, am I wrong for saying that there is more than church, more than, the Bible. And I believe that it's a tool, and as well as the Bible, is a tool for us to use it to navigate, through this thing called life, and just to rely 100% on, church alone. I think that that's why a lot of times we're, broken when we find out these scandals of something that's going on in the church, the pastors, or, someone, one of the deacons, or, something that's going on in the church. And that runs a lot of people from church because of that, because they're broken, because they solely depended on, church for their, beliefs. That was their only, connection. And it has to be more, it has to be deeper. If, that is your, your choice is to, to be a spiritual, person and believe in a higher power. You have to have your relationship with, or him, whoever it is that you believe in, and not rely on the, clergy, or the church, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's something definitely that we have to, consider, if we really want to reach our highest self. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So with vulnerability in relationships, why do you feel that it's a lot of times it's difficult, with dealing, with relationships, intimate relationships, as far as, partner?
Yeah, from the very beginning, I don't think that we're totally true to ourselves and to one another when we first engage into a relationship. I think that in some form or another, we're still pretending. I don't necessarily let my walls down until I get to know you, and vice versa. So when can I truly expose who I really am to you? I'm waiting for trust to happen. I need to trust you in order to let you know, hey, I really don't know how to cook as well. I really don't know how to wash clothes. I don't know how to paint a house. I don't know how to barbecue. But I got with you, and now you're expecting things, and now I'm just like, well, I didn't know I need to talk to you about those things. I didn't know that that was important to
Right.
you. And so now I'm
Right.
expecting you kind of looking at me crazy, like, you mean, wait a minute, you can't cook? You don't know how to barbecue? What about this you know how to fix nothing? And it's like, I didn't have the opportunity to come into my relationship with you by saying, hey, I don't know how to do any of these things. What's gonna happen? You're gonna say, well, the dude that I just got out of a relationship with knew how to do all those things. So now
Mm,
I'm gonna up the ante, or I
mm,
just can't even start. But what if I'm totally into you? So now what do? I have to pretend. And it's
mm.
unfortunate.
Well, why is that though? Why would you say that you necessarily have to pretend? Because I think that a lot of times we do compare, and it
Yeah.
does make it, difficult. But why do you feel that you would necessarily have to pretend in that case, and not just feel like, well, let me try this out and see if I can tell her maybe one or two things about myself and see how she reacts to that? What's the reason that you would more so be leaning towards pretending?
Well, several different reasons. Like I said in the very beginning, trauma has really shaped who I am as a
Mm,
man. And so from those traumatic experiences, if I'm into someone, I'm not necessarily looking for them to just walk out the door because I don't know something that they might want me to know. And
mm,
so their expectation is not necessarily verbalized or vocalized to where I can actually get the context of what they're looking for from me. So I just
mm,
give them the best part of what I think they want from me. And I said pretend, and I mean, there are other words to use, but I simply say pretend because I'm not giving them my whole self. I'm giving them a portion of what I feel
mhm.
like I benefit from. And I don't
Right.
think that I'm the only
Or,
person who's doing that. You know what I'm saying? I think
yeah.
that many of us go into those things. That's the reason why marriages don't last that long nowadays. You know, we get married really quickly, and then we think that the love is supposed to last all those 5 years, but it's turbulent times. You reach year number two, and you're like, do I really still know this person? No, you don't. So guess what? You have to continue to learn them. And
Right.
unfortunately, we just don't have the time to invest. We think that the very first investment was all that we needed, but
Mm,
no, it's an investment every day that you're going to be with me and that I'm going to be with you. And so it just takes a while, but it's in just to talk about being vulnerable. There are just many times in which I'm just like, can I really share this really important aspect of my life with my other half? Is it too soon? Can they take this part of my life? I don't know.
Right.
Because what? If they can't take this, it's going to be crushing to me. Now I'm not
Right.
going to be good for anybody else going after that.
Right. No.
Potentially.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's interesting because we're talking about vulnerability, and it's a two-part thing, you know, and one thing that we have to remember as well is that you're not vulnerable 24/7, you know,
Nope.
that wouldn't be wise, you know. uh, you're vulnerable in situations where there is a safe space for you to be vulnerable. It's really an opportunity to connect, you know, on a deeper level when you're able to be vulnerable. And that leads me to talk about the myths. You know, there are several myths, but the two that I want to really talk about is the first one, which is most common, and that is that vulnerability is weak, you know, or it's weakness. A lot of times, you know, we look at vulnerability as being weak, and women look at it sometimes as a vulnerability being weak. A lot of times with men, because we are raised a certain way, not really seeing that, or maybe not really understanding what vulnerability is, and so that can be part of the reason why we're like, oh, I don't know if I want him to be vulnerable, because we're concerned, like, if he's vulnerable, does that mean, like, you know, he's not going to be able to protect me? You know, is he showing that all the time? And so other men feel like that they can try him, you know, because, you know, what's important to a woman is, you know, feeling secure and safe, right? And so that's why it's important to understand what, you know, the meaning is, and understand how it works. So, and then with men, a lot of men believe that vulnerability is weak. You know, they're like, oh, you know, I'm not going to be, you know, all soft like that, you know, and you know, that's weak. You know, I'm not talking about my feelings, you know, and so I think that these myths, you know, kind of hurt us. The other myth is that vulnerability is putting it all out there, everything, you know, all your business, all your information, just emotional vomit. And that, you know, is a myth that hurts us as well, because you feel like if it's not, it's either nothing or everything, you know, and in this case, it's some stuff in between, you know. So tell me more how you feel about these myths and any other myths that you may have, you know, heard of or felt at one point.
Yeah, for sure. It's unfortunate that a lot of times we view emotionalism and vulnerability and emotionalism as two totally different things, right? And so
Mhm.
people really don't know how to decipher which one is which. So being vulnerable in a situation, I mean, you brought up something about women want to feel like they're safe. Well, so
Mhm.
do we. I definitely want to feel like I'm safe with you, not just safe because you protected me from the monster outside, but
Mhm.
basically you're protecting me as your soulmate, as your spouse, as the person that's on the other side of you. You're
Right.
representing me, I'm representing you. So if I can come to you and say, you know what, babe, is this a safe space for me to tell you that, you know what, I cried at work because there's just so much pressure going on.
Mhm.
There's pressure at work, and then I have to come home and make sure that the bills are paid. I got to make sure that the cars are running.
Mhm.
I can't deal with this. And
Right.
so I need to make sure that this is a safe space. I'm not weak. I'm talking to you so that I can formulate a strategy to make
Mhm.
things better. And I think that it's about strategy. It's not always about weakness. And I think that sometimes when we look at what's weak, you know, if I'm weak, then I'm ready to faint, basically. And so I don't have time to be fainting. I have more to go. But what happens is I'm just fatigued. I'm not weak though. I've just
Mhm.
been going through the motions so much to where of course, I need rest. That's just
Right.
basically what it boils down to, but it's not weakness. And so if I'm
Right.
coming to you, you want the same safe space that I want. I want to feel safe with you. You want to feel safe with me. And so therefore, I don't have time for you to tell me, hey, you just got to get it together, go back to work and fix it the next day. No, because the next day could mean so much more. You need to
Exactly.
understand
Yeah.
as my other half to be like, you know what? Is this like postal crazy that you're going through? Do you just need to kind of talk to me about it? Do you just
Mhm.
need to lay your head on me? Just
Right.
let me rub your head today.
Right. Right here.
Yeah, right
That's
there.
that's what, I mean, but what you're saying, it's right. It's there's a protection that we expect, as women, from men,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's a protection that we also provide as women to men, and that is that emotional safety, and that, that peace. Being your peace is, there's so much that you have to factor in, and creating that emotional safe space, that space for you to be vulnerable, and express yourself, is a part of us protecting you all, as well. And so I
yeah,
think that that's something that we don't typically think about on a everyday basis, and think about the beauty in what, femininity means, and being able to protect you in that way. We're just thinking about us being protected physically, but we want to be protected physically and, emotionally, when it comes down to it, and you're in an intimate relationship. And so it it should be expected, both, on both sides, because, if you want something, you would think that you would be able to, provide it as well on your end, so I totally get that. I think that that's very important for us to reflect on, and kind of, let that marinate. But go ahead and continue. I'm not for sure if you're finished with that.
basically that's just what I was going to say about that. But definitely, uh, know, I was about to say know your place, but basically know your part in your relationship. And
Position,
um,
role. Hmm.
basically, yeah.
What
So
you're
as a
bringing to
woman,
the table. Yes. Yes.
exactly, what you bring it to the table, because if what you're looking for is for me to provide for you, to make sure that the boogeyman doesn't get you, to make sure that the kids have clothes on their backs, then what's left for me? Sex
Hmm.
can come from anyone. So therefore, if you
Hmm.
just saying, "Hey, I got some bomb," well, so does the neighbor next door, and
Hmm.
I guarantee you, I don't have to go over there and put clothes on her back. You know what I'm saying? So I'm talking about what happens when people are so vulnerable and they don't have an outlet, they find it somewhere
Right.
else.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So I think
And
that
yeah,
some
that's
areas in which we need to tackle a little bit more. We have to unpack the fact that um, communication is also very necessary in relationships, because you can't just look at me and be like, "Oh, he's doing good." How do you know? I'm smiling every day from 9 to 6. They don't
hmm
know that I'm broken. And if I'm doing that when I get to the house, you don't know I'm broken until I snap. So I think that is truly important for me, and for men to have a safe space in their relationships too, because
hmm
what requires me to be the best man that I can be is knowing that I can be my best self with my other half, and everything is going to be safe. And once I leave this house, I'm restored because I got what I needed in my house.
mm. No, that's a good point. And I think that that is very important as we, discuss, connecting deeper with each other, Black men and Black women. We have to kind of reflect on what our expectations are, and make sure that we're prepared, to be that, for maybe not exactly the same, thing, but in the ways that, we contribute, really understanding, the power of, being a woman, and what we do, and what we do that, you all can't. We have to make sure that we're on our game, essentially, and want to be on it, and it's not determined based on what someone else is doing. if you are seeking, a partner where you can be vulnerable, have a safe space, build, together. It's critical that you understand who you are and what you're bringing to the table and being fair about it, because we know, I'm sure you've heard it. I've heard it, plenty of times from friends over the years or even associates, where you have this list and you're asking God, oh God, please send me a man that has these things. I want him to have this, Lord, I want him to have this. There's nothing wrong with knowing what you want, jotting it down, sending some prayers up, manifesting, all that good stuff. But what does your list look like? Are you looking for someone to come and save you? Or are you looking for someone to be your partner? Nicole Ari Parker, she had posted something not too long ago. Everybody looks at her boys coach and they're like, oh, they have a beautiful relationship and so on. And they do. But she said that she had to, after she had her list of all the things that she was looking at, she said the same thing that, I've said to some of my friends, and that's, where's your list? If you met this man today, would you be what he needs, what he was praying for? You know what I mean? Or, just what he needs. Are you working on those things to get there? And are you even willing? And a lot of times, as women, we're not thinking about that and we're not willing. And so, that's one where we have to kind of check ourselves. And as sisters, we have to kind of, hold each other accountable. So I definitely appreciate what you said there, because it's important for us to know that y'all need that, as well, if we don't already understand that, but really to let that sit in, so that we can make sure that we're providing that if we want to be in relationships with you all. So great point. So the next myth was about just the emotional vomit, believing that vulnerability means to just put everything out there and tell you about, your whole life story. I'm telling you about something very specific, or opening up to you about something. And you're like, well, you go through this list of how bad your life is, or was, but that's not, what vulnerability means. So for you, how do you feel about that? Is that something that you've heard before, that, thinking, people thinking that vulnerability is just telling all your business?
Yeah, only because they don't understand the difference between emotionalism and vulnerability. I think that there's a time and a place to talk about certain things and to have that exposure, if you will. But I think that it's also important to realize that today that I'm having this isolated conversation with you, I have to understand my goal. There has to be an objective for me to get what I need out of this conversation. So therefore, I can't tell you everything. You, as the other person listening to that, might not necessarily be ready to hear the life story. And I just said, you might not have the you might not be equipped enough to help me heal from that. But what's the point?
Right.
I think that from an isolated standpoint, if you give me something that you're talking about, or I give you something that I'm talking about, and it's very specific, then that's the objective for me to specify, this is what I'm going through today. How can my conversation with you help me release this? It's unfortunate that if anybody's actually putting all their business on the table at one time, then it's a little bit too much. I tell people all the time, it's not necessary to tell the testimony until the test is complete. So therefore, I'm not going to tell you about something that I'm still struggling with, because if it's not edifying me, it's not going to edify you, and I'm not going to be released in the end. So I might as well wait, because even though it could be a testimony for me, you might not be ready for that. So therefore, I just have to wait. So I think that there's a difference between being vulnerable and just letting everything hang out, because it's not
It's not effective.
necessary at all. So,
Right.
I think we just need to know that as men. We just don't. But I mean, as men, most of us, we're not letting nothing out.
Right,
No.
right. Well, yeah, and so for the audience, we're going to open it up for questions here. If you have any questions, so just raise your hand and throw your questions in the chat, and we will discuss it, or try and answer it the best way that we can. It's funny here. So Michael says, I don't need a better half. I need 100%, not 50. I agree with you totally. I can't stand when people say, oh, 50-50. No, it's 100-100. You come into this thing whole. And I think that that's a big piece of the problem as well, is just thinking that you can come, with your 50%. You're not whole, you're struggling, you're struggling 50% of the time, and at least if we come into a whole, yes, we could fluctuate, but we stumble, but we have better chances of being okay and having a harmonious relationship if you come into this thing and you've done your work. You're 100% and I'm 100%, and that doesn't mean perfect, but as close as you can get, just doing your work constantly, because we'll be working on ourselves till the day that we get out of here. So
I mean, I totally get it. I mean, you're 100, me being 100, and the other person being 100, that's fine. But I need to understand what my 100% is going to bring you.
It may be 100%. Your 100%, may be
might not be
100% to me.
You're 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's important to know, because, as we talk about it, we're not literally, saying, perfection, but what works for two different people, may not work for another couple. You know what I mean? Or, a lot of times people are looking like, oh, I wish I had him, or I wish I had her. It's just like, well, if you had them, you wouldn't know what to do with it, and not, no shade, but like, seriously, that person may be that person with that other individual, but when they get with you, they're totally different. Different people bring different things out, so that's something important to think about. My mom always told me, don't ever be jealous of anyone, because you don't know what they had to go through to get what they have. And that's always stuck with me. I think naturally I'm not, but that helps as well, something to reflect on and to share with other people, when you think you want what someone else has,
Sure. And my 100% might not be compatible with yours. And I think that, once again, we have to realize what the value in our percentage what really means to someone else. I know that I feel like I'm 100 every day. But then when I get to somebody new, they're just like, nah, you slip it. Like, no, I can't. I'm not slipping. I'm 100.
Right.
I'm your 100%.
What are you saying to me? I thought I was, right. But yesterday, like, right. It's like, yes, you are. And
it's like, you just really have to determine that, make that assessment. That's what you got to do.
Of course. Definitely, I'm with you on that. So we have a question. Oh, okay. I thought you said something. We have a question from Miss Amber, and she said, "What single issues trouble you the most in this cold world?"
Ooh. What? Okay.
I know. Good one.
That's really good, and I like that question. Being inclusivity. And what I'm talking about inclusivity is about values, my place in this world versus your place in this world. Am I being inclusive to you? Are you being inclusive to me? Having that type of bond is different things in which I bring to the table that probably no one else will understand. And so having more context of what that looks like to someone else, then they can love me better. Then I can love them better, because I get more context to where they've been, what they're going through. And unfortunately, I've been in relationships where I don't really get to tap into knowing the bigger picture. I just
Mm,
chunk it to the fact, oh, she crazy. I try to cut them off because they're crazy, or they sleep too much, or they
mm,
have this going on. It's just like, and you have no ambition. And it's like,
mm,
I need to be tapped into the very idea of where did you come from? Why are things the way that they are? And it's going back to investment also.
mm,
And because we don't have a lot of inclusive areas for us as Black men already, it's really hard. And so we're siloed already as individuals. And then when we get together with someone else, we kind of feel like, now I still need to be siloed. I got a partner, but I'm still siloed because I don't have time for the stuff that you're going to bring to me, and I'll have time for you to understand who I am. So I would remain siloed in this unit of a
mm.
relationship, and it's unfortunate, but that was a very, very good question. I like that.
Right. Well, and especially, too, along with that is that partner not being vulnerable. Because what you said, feeling like, you're not getting, who that person is. And so like when we talk about vulnerability, the vulnerability has to kind of, go both ways. A lot of the times we don't know what we're projecting or putting out there because
Yeah.
we're not vulnerable, but the expectation is be vulnerable with me, I mean, and as a woman, a lot of times, well, and I'm a fixer, so I'll be like, tell me everything, tell me. I mean, in most cases, as it pertains to friends and people I don't know, they will. But in relationships, sometimes that is hard, and you don't know where that person is at. And so, you have to be able to be vulnerable with your partner if the expectation is that you would like to be, get that, have that space for vulnerability. And so, like you were saying, you want to know who this person is, like, let me into your world.
Right.
And so it's not a one-sided, thing. So I think
Sure.
that was,
And I mean, it's truly deep to me because I mean, I've been in relationships where I couldn't even meet uh, the person's mother or grandmother or sister. I was not included in the
mm,
life that the other person was living. And so I'm just like, well, what am I? What is this? And it's just like, am I kept secret? And so I want to be
mm.
included in the things that's very important to you.
You was a
And
side dude? Were you the side? You was the
I,
side dude?
I don't know, possibly,
She's like,
possibly.
we're gonna keep you on the, keep it on the low.
I mean, possibly, and I mean, I
Oh
didn't,
man.
but I'm just saying,
No.
it happens. Even if the person is not a side piece, it just
Yeah,
happens.
it
And
does. Right.
I have no idea why it happens.
Mm,
But once again, it goes back to, how invested and committed are you to making me feel good and accepted in your life, and vice versa.
mm. Yeah. No, I mean, I laugh, about it, but that is hard, and I've been on that end, too, where you feel kind of like alone, but you're in a relationship. It's like, how'd that work? You know, it's like,
Yep.
especially with the families and stuff, and you're like, okay, I'm a part of it, everybody's welcoming, but at the end of the day, that's your child, that's
And I
your
mean,
brother, that's, and you, may feel like, okay, so at what point is it going to be us? You know what I mean? And like, to your point, that would make it hard for you to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to open up and be vulnerable with you, because you don't feel connected there. You don't feel like that's you know, nowhere at any point, was there a safe space created, for you to say, okay, I'm going to lay my burdens down, like lay everything out there, so that we can kind of tackle the things that you guys can tackle together.
for
Yeah.
sure. I
So,
mean, when we think about interracial couples too, I've
mm,
seen to where interracial couples, somebody can't go when they have the family event. And 9 times out of 10, if it's a black and white couple, the black man can't go. And I've seen that in other relationships to be like, well, I couldn't go to the family event with her because I'm black. And
mm,
I mean, we're married, but they know this, but I still can't go. And I
yeah.
mean, but that's the lack of inclusivity. No one knows that you're sitting over here by yourself because nobody's interacting with you. You go to the family event with your other half, and you're just sitting by yourself.
That could be a personality thing as well. I mean, not even with, with race, but I mean, that's a good point. But even with, personalities or your upbringing, could be an issue. Okay, so we have one more question here, and then I'll have a question for you. So Amber asked
Hold-
again.
Janine has a question. You skipped her
Janine-
twice.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not see the question here. Hold on.
Do Black men think white women express more vulnerability tendencies than Black women?
That's a great question.
Great
Okay,
question.
thank you, Jeannie.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. This is not a fact check type of conversation right now, but I do think so. I think so, only because culturally they've been more exposed to talking a little bit more, having more safer spaces to talk about. I just really don't feel this, don't understand.
It's
And
freedom.
we, as freedom, and the fact that we've been so oppressed for generations after generations after generations. Nothing's safe. No space is safe to talk about the things that are within. And
Right.
so I do feel like, yes, I do feel like white women are more susceptible to being vulnerable in those situations just because of background culturally and what they've seen and witnessed. So yeah, I do.
Got
How do
it.
you feel about that, Yvonne? B,
No, that was good. Huh?
how do you feel about that?
I agree. I agree with that totally. I think that, I mean, it kind of depends because there are a lot of Black women who are like, I believe that, I can be that way. I could read the room, and there are certain people that I feel very, safe with to be able, to do that. But even with a good upbringing, I think that culturally it
Yeah.
is forced upon us all the time, just, oh, strong Black woman. And even when you don't really have to be that strong, it's like you got two parents, you got, people involved doing things, willing to help. But there is, it's a part of the culture, and then for those people who really, are struggling, and I think so many times it's that, in our community that we're busy trying to survive, that we're not thriving. And so a lot of times I say it's a luxury, when people compare, white women to Black women, it's totally different. The things that I can't be at my job, and experiencing lots of, okay, so it's a tough day. I'm having a tough day. I've got 1,000 deadlines. Everything's going wrong today for some reason. It's Freaky Friday. and I can't break down, if I'm having a bad day, something's going on at home, I'm struggling with my spouse, and my kids are acting up, getting in trouble, and I've got deadlines at work. I can't break down at work as a Black woman, but my Caucasian female boss, I've, but I've experienced this where she's breaking down, and as she breaks down at work, our upper leadership is like, oh, well, it's okay. Laquita will help you. Is it too much? Don't worry, this person will help, but that same Laquita, if she's having a bad day, she's struggling, and it literally is 1,000 jobs, because most of us know this, as Black women, in corporate environments or just anywhere, we are working, harder, and I think that that's like that for Black women and Black men. And so, but if she doesn't feel safe, maybe in some companies you could say, hey, I need some extra help. But most of us believe if I say that, they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe this isn't the job for you. You
Yeah.
know, there's not going to be a helping hand stretched out, for you, this Black woman, or, Black man, maybe, just depends on what the motives, people's motives might be. But we don't have that luxury, unfortunately. So it's not even a thought to say, oh yeah, sure, I'm just going to be so vulnerable at work. Like, no, you know, no, you have those spaces of where you feel like, okay, it's safe. And unfortunately, when you're in that survival mode, most of the time, there's not opportunities to be vulnerable. So yeah, but I do think that we do have our girlfriends. And so we have a lot of opportunities in that, and, groups, church groups, or, you're just good, clubs that you're a part of, and you're able to find spaces sometimes there. But yeah, to answer the question, I don't think that it's not as common, because there's not there's not as many opportunities, for us, because there's a lot of healing that needs to happen in our community before we can do that. So yeah, I'm sorry that went a little long. This is not about me. This is not about me, because I'll go long. But okay, so let's try and get to that. Okay, so Amber says, what's the biggest misconception you as a Black man that people assume is true when they first meet you? Describe the last occurrence and how you dealt with it.
Sure.
Girl, she interviewing for the next Ask a Black Man, okay? She's part of the team, okay?
Good. Good. Yeah, misconception is the fact that I left one job in leadership and came to another one in leadership, and everyone assumed that I came in arrogant. And so I found out like 6 months later, mind you, that people have been talking about the fact that because I dressed up every day to go to work. I was there about 30 minutes early every day. And so people just assumed that I was trying to be too good or better than everyone else. And so the school girl, she was just like, everyone thought you were conceited. Conceited how? Did you come and talk to me?
Conceited where?
I don't know. And so she's just like, but you look so well put together every day, and you don't talk much to anybody. Yeah, because of the environment that I work in. And I don't talk to everybody because everybody's just different. And some of these spaces in which we have communications are just not my speed. So I mean, it's just what it is. But the misconception for that was that I was conceited and that I knew a lot more than what I really did. And so they were waiting to catch me up on knowledge so that they could use that against me. And they did. And that's when I had to become vulnerable to say, you know what, I really don't know that. And to say that with confidence, because sometimes when you cower and be like, I don't know this, then of course that's going to give them more ammunition to be like, you're not a good fit, you're not a good leader. And that's not the case. The case is, leadership, you do not know it all.
Very true.
Sometimes great leaders have to rely on somebody else to get the facts for them. So I'm just one of those, I don't know. I don't know it all, but I'm here in the place to learn it. And now that I have the platform and the opportunity, I will learn it. And so over time, it got better for me. More people started to engage with me, but I found that to be very strange because I don't feel myself as a conceited person. And especially as a Black man, unfortunately, as a Black man, I'm definitely not conceited. I feel like if nothing else, I've been in a situation where I've allowed my white counterparts to kind of, dictate where I go, how to lead, and all that type of stuff. So for a while, I was a follower. So in some cases, I still kind of feel like I fit within that mold, which it's different. But for them to think that off top that I was conceited was just new. It was a new concept for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I see that happen a lot of times when people can't just be themselves. That's men women, and it's just like, just because I dress, because I took a shower, curl my hair up, that I gotta be, all these things, or, you as a man dressing up and being, real clean, and you're dapper, you get real dapper. And so a lot of times people make up all these different ideas of who you are just because you dress nice, and that's really sad. But we actually have a lot more questions I did not see, so I'm going to tap into those, and we're going to try.
I want to make sure that she was talking about in corporate America, but in relationships, I mean, she didn't ask that, did she?
No.
I'm glad that I answered that question, because I was about to say relationships. Sometimes people think that I'm rich and I'm not that. So.
Oh, hey, yeah, I feel you. Okay, so the Black Marvel. Okay, when a man decides to display, I'm sorry about that. Hold on. Okay, so when a man decides to display his vulnerability to a woman, he risks dealing with what is it? Oh, her misatonement. Well, I'm like, I think I understand what he's saying. When you're vulnerable as a man, with a woman, and if you're not really sure if that is the safe space, you risk a lot of things. You don't know how she's going to take that, or she's going to think, oh, because just like we were talking about earlier about the myth of it being weak. I've heard plenty of women who think that, about vulnerability, because essentially they just assume it comes down to crying, and that they're like, I don't want my man just crying all the time. He can cry, There was something the other day with Rihanna, and she was just saying, my man, he can cry, but if he found out that his ex-girlfriend passed away and he just breaks down sobbing, he's single. I mean, it was funny, but it's just like some women actually think that. And that's, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to have that conversation.
I feel like that type of woman is for the right type of man, And
who
so
thinks that same way, right?
Correct. And so I think that for the atonement piece, I mean, it's not necessarily wrong for you to be vulnerable. And if someone that you're going to be with, say, for instance, you want to get married to this person, you're never going to be vulnerable. I mean, we're talking about you. What type of thing is this? What type of false expectation do you have to where I cannot be vulnerable with you the rest of my life? What is this? That's the reason why I say we pretend. Why should I spend the rest of my life with you and I can't shed a tear?
Right.
If died and I meant something to them and they meant something to me, best believe I'm going to cry if I feel like it. And if for some reason you walk out the door, then it was best for you to do so.
Yeah, you made the decision for us both.
Correct.
Okay, so Jean, Miss Jean says, how does our Black man fix that? We want to be free too. I'm wondering what this is connected to, but I'll finish reading. We want to be free too as women, and have a safe space to express ourselves and feel safe with Black men.
Sure. How do y'all fix it, or how do we fix it aligned with you?
How do Black men fix that? I'm not for sure what the question was before.
If that is, well, I'll go for it. I'm not
Possibly
too sure
about the vulnerability, on the other end. It's like you want vulnerability,
Sure.
and so I guess possibly about when we were talking about the safety and, because that's what she said. She refers back to feeling safe. We want to feel safe and have that safe space, to, express ourselves with you all, with Black men. So how do you contribute to it? You want vulnerability, but what's your contribution? Do you feel that you're contributing to say, I deserve a safe space with you, because XYZ?
I feel like my contribution is allowing you to be vulnerable with me. to have conversations with me to say, you know what, I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling confident. I'm not feeling secure. Having that exchange of dialogue allows you to feel safe with me. But I feel like as women, you have more opportunities. You said it best. You have more opportunities with different groups and social circles to have those conversations. And I think as men, we need to allow that a little bit more, not necessarily gossip sessions, but just sessions able to sharpen one another so that you can come back to me and be like, you know what, Teresa gave me some very good advice about what happened with us yesterday. Can I share that with you? Stuff like that. I want to make sure that I'm not demanding something that I'm not going to give you. We're talking about safety and being vulnerable. And I think that's the very core to the foundation of why we need to be with one another. As my other half, I need to make sure that you're sharpening me. I need to sharpen you. That's how we begin to get better and to build upon us as a unit. But the more and more that you keep hiding things or that I'm holding off and I'm not free with you, we won't build. I can't sharpen you. You can't sharpen me. So I think that to answer the question is just giving you more time to talk to me a little bit more, to expose some truths that maybe I'm just oblivious to.
Okay. Right. So kind of having that open discussion. Maybe you're not vulnerable, right? Maybe you're not even aware that you're not being vulnerable, but having those conversations, still creating a safe space in a way so that you can have that conversation and I could say to you, hey, you know, like I want to be able to share these things with you and feel, you know, that I can be vulnerable as well. You know, let's have a discussion and you being open, you know, to having that discussion.
But it also goes back to effective listening, you know. For me, I can listen all day. I mean, I don't have a problem with listening. And I think that we need to listen more. Sometimes it's unfortunate because somebody is just talking and they break long enough so that they can talk again. And so having that open line of communication to be like, hey, I want to be vulnerable with you, but you're not allowing me. You're not really you're not giving me the opportunity. And so just having that, because what I don't know, I don't know. You have to talk to me and tell me something.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see okay, so Larry says that finances are important in relationships.
Come on, Larry.
How many dates in should you discuss debt, income, and financial goals? That's vulnerability.
That's absolutely vulnerability, bro.
You might have just lost your job before that date, right? But this is your dream girl. What you gonna do?
Larry. That's such a good question, but bro, I don't think that I have the full answer to your question. But what I'll do is I'll talk to you about how I feel about that. I'm not going to talk about my finances right away. I'm just not going to. And when I say right away, I'd say within the first month. I mean, why am I discussing how much I make with you?
Or debt.
How much I make with you. Why am I doing that? Why am I talking about money with you? Now, here's the thing, and I talked about this earlier, is the fact that if I plan on being with you long enough for marriage, then you need to know, because guess what? We might have all taxes together. We might have to. So therefore, you need to kind of know what but you need to know what I'm bringing to the table, and I need to know what you're bringing to the table. And I think that you have to make a more conscious and wise decision about what you talk about. But, you know, sometimes you think that this person that you just met yesterday is the one that you need to be with. Hey, if you feel like talking about your finances and go down to the altar the next week, go for that. But being wise about conversations, we're adults. And I think that sometimes you need to be more informed about what you're talking about with someone else. I need to understand the context of why you had to go through losing your job, being in debt. They might need to know that. And if they're not invested, they don't have time. So you don't need to have time to give that information to them unless you know.
No, that is true. Okay, and Amber just said, thank you so much. She appreciates your openness.
Oh, you're welcome.
We going deep, And thank you, Larry, for that question as well. I loved it. I think that's very important. A lot of times we get those little surprises, and maybe not too early, but sometimes people wait until you're getting ready to say I do.
Oh,
And
so
that might,
you broke? You absolutely broke? Be like, I didn't know about that.
how much back pay for that child support, brother? Okay, let me see. Okay. Okay, so they're just talking to each other. So, oh, Miss Jeannie asked if you're married. Is you married? Is you married?
No, I'm not married. I'm not married. Something's telling me that she's seen this ring on my finger.
Oh, I don't know. But have you been married before?
I have. I was married for 9 years.
Not
9 years.
yet. Okay, and I'm, some of, obviously some stuff I know, but for the people that may be interested and that, because it's coming from, your perspective is coming from someone with a lot of experiences,
Oh, yeah.
through your work, through life, and through being married, being divorced. There's a lot of learning moments, along the way. So I definitely wanted to mention that. So
I'm not married.
yeah, not married in this moment. not today. Maybe sometime in the future. Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Okay. So I have a one last question, and that question is, before we wrap it up, is in what way can Black women help you to be more vulnerable?
Perfect. Take a moment, assess us a little bit more, listen. It's really hard sometimes for women to listen, and I think that it's really effective. Um, my struggles in life have kind of created this character in which I call myself. And so therefore, you need to know exactly who I'm giving to you today, tomorrow, the next week. And so I think that as assessors of the person that you're with, if I'm like, every day I'm coming home and I'm this way, you should be able to tell when I'm not that same person. And so looking to say, hey, what's going on? But not nagging. So there's a difference. So if you're just like, what's wrong with you? I asked you if something's wrong with you. Why are you not telling me what's wrong with you? Totally different from understanding the fact that I just need to lay my head on you. I need to know that, can I cast this burden on you? And it's unfortunate, but a lot of times we don't get that as men. We don't have the same opportunities, the same spaces, because we're looked upon as strong individuals, and we should be out there providing, making a way. And it's really definitely tough, especially for a person like me. So I think that women need to listen a little bit more, and just give us the opportunity to be the best man that we can be. You have to assist us for us to be great. And so, and being great comes from understanding your place in this unit. And so it's very important to understand those things about who you are and who I am. And so hopefully that helps someone else.
Yeah, no, I think that answers the question. I know that you wanted to talk or speak about, as a Black man in this country, what we're going through, now, and what we experienced last year, with all the violence and murdering, Black men, that plays a big, part in you deciding if how vulnerable you're gonna be,
No kidding.
when when you're a Black man, in America, and the different things that you're needing.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to say something about that. I was going to allow you to hear.
Well, it's not anything super deep or profound. It's just the fact that as of recently, I realized that I'm a Black man when I leave the house, and that there could be a possibility that I might not return to the house. I went to a small city in Texas not too long ago, and I was good until I lost reception. reception on my phone and couldn't navigate through the city. And I realized how paralyzed I was without my phone. But then I started to think, if I get pulled over, what's going to happen? Who can I call? Not just who can I call, but I don't have any way to record what's happening. If something happens to me, it's going to be their word against me. I had never thought about that before.
Right.
And I mean, I lived in an age where we didn't even have cell phones like that. I mean, you left the house, you called someone on the house phone, you told them, I'm gonna be at your house in an hour. If you don't make it, then they start looking for you. But now everybody has a cell phone. But in the instance, I never thought about, what if I get pulled over today? What's gonna happen to me? And I felt like that was a very pivotal moment for me to kind of just view myself as the man that I am.
Right.
How someone else views me. It was just very important for me to talk about that. Just never thought about it like that before. But a Black man who also has a Black son who's 22 years old, I have to have conversations with him about, does your hair look appropriate? Does your clothes look appropriate? Are you saying the right words, using the right language? Do you look tense when you're having a conversation with a white man? Stuff like that.
Right.
Never seen, I never had to witness anything like this before, like this. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, so we don't end it on a too heavy note. So with all those things, you know, as a Black man, you know, in the climate that we're in, tell me what exactly, and we will end it on this note, what exactly do you look for in a woman, in a partner, as it pertains to that, the overall, just knowing, okay, I feel like I can be in a successful relationship with this young lady. And as it pertains to vulnerability, that obviously would be a factor in factoring that into relationships or choosing a partner. So
Yeah.
what would you say the main top 3 things you would look for? Or if you have 2, then give me 2. Give us 2.
I'll give you 2. A good communicator. Communication goes two ways. Talking, nonverbal. I need a lot of nonverbal, but I also need someone who can communicate to the point to where I'm just not like, there's no monopolizing of a conversation with me. I need somebody to really understand who I am. It's very difficult for me to share myself with someone else through communication. And so I've been working on that for the last 3 years, just trying to make sure that I communicate better, not just because I want to say some things, but because I want to give context to how I really feel. In order for me to heal, I need to also talk about my wants and my needs, and it has to be effective. And so I need someone to understand that and communicate with me likewise. I also need someone that is super spiritual. You know, we are definitely, all of us are spiritual people in this fleshly body. And so I need somebody that's in alignment with understanding that Jesus is my Lord and Savior. I mean, I have to be in alignment with someone who understands that that's what I need from you. There's a lot of people that I've run into that say, you know what, I believe in Christ, but then my partner is an atheist. I mean, whatever that is works for them. But listen, the Bible says that a house divided will not stand. And so that's something that I definitely need from a woman. You know, I need you to be spiritual. I don't need you to be super spiritual. I need you to preach to me every day. But I need us to have conversations about what Christ has done for you. I need us to sit down and have some Bible study every now and again. And I need for us to understand the struggles, the triumphs, the victories, and be able to build upon those things. So those are very important.
She can understand you, you know, better if you guys are following the same, you know, I guess leadership. You're being led by God, and essentially she's being led by you. And so if you're not on the same page with that, that's going to be a little difficult. So totally understand that. Well, I would like to say again, thank you so much for coming on the show. We touched on A lot. Vulnerability is deep, especially speaking, to a Black man. There's so much that you all have to say and so much that you experience that is not heard or, is, unknown. And so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with the V1D community and the HBCU network, Lounge Network. And I'm sure that this was helpful. And for all of you all who have someone who wanted to see it tonight or missed it, it'll be here. And I will also share it on the Virtual First Dates YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
And thank you, Flimbrick, for, for coming
Thank
on.
you so much. Thank you. Also, before I get up out of here, I supervise a counseling program for young adults 18 to 24. It's called Project Bay. You can find us on social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. It is, so the program is about 4 to 6 weeks for 18 to 24-year-olds. It's a one-on-one conversation about sexual health, substance use, and mental health. And so very deep conversations. We kind of work on strategies about not necessarily totally cold turkey stopping what your habits are, but just kind of giving you strategies for how to do those things without being vulnerable to STDs. And so part of that is we do testing, free testing, by the way, for HIV and hepatitis C, and we also incentivize with $30. So I mean, you're coming in to know about status and about strategy, but we're also providing you a little meal ticket for you to be able to buy whatever you need whenever you want it within the $30 parameter. But yeah, so if you know anybody that's interested, we do service 5 counties here in Texas, which is Williamson, Travis, Caldwell, Hayes, and Bastrop. So if you know anybody within that, but if you're just interested to know a little bit more about Project Bay, look us up on Facebook, like us, share us. We're available. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And yes, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I wanted you to definitely share what you do, and hopefully we get a lot of views and people are able to see that and pass the information on to someone who needs it. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in to episode 3 of Ask the Black Man. And until next time, see you later. Good night.